Now, the first part of the what we're doing is we're going to use something called the quadratic formula. Now, that's for several different purposes. Okay, number one, okay, it's a way that you can solve if you are not comfortable with factoring. Okay, it's another way. And do y'all remember the other day when you got, where it wouldn't factor and you wrote the word prime?
Yeah.
Okay, now, if you looked at the graphs, most of those actually cross the x-axis, so they would have solutions. We just couldn't factor them. Some problems just do not factor, or some quadratics just do not factor. Okay, but this is something that was developed that always works. Okay, but we'll get to that here in just a second.
What's your doesn't?
What? Yeah. Of course, I need a calculator because. Yep, you took yours back. Okay, now first, okay, we're gonna just review factoring real quick. Okay, first thing, what do I need to do to this quadratic equation?
For what? Oh, you need to put the 15.
Yes, I need to move the 15 to the other side. How am I going to do that?
Subtract.
By subtracting it. So I have x squared plus 2x minus 15. Okay, I just set it equal to 0 because we are solving. Okay. Now I will use the box method. Okay, what goes here? X squared. What goes here? Negative 15. Oops, I can't write. They're going to add together to be 2x and multiply together to be negative 15x squared. Okay, now think of the factors of 15. We have 1 and 15, 5 and 3. 5 and 3. Now, since this is negative, that tells me one of them has to be negative. Okay, 5x and 3x. Which one has to be negative to total 2x?
3.
3. Very good. Okay, once we're here, what times what is x squared?
X.
X times what is negative 3x? Negative 3. What times x is 5x? Is 5 times negative 3 negative 15? Yes. So my factors are, what are my factors? X plus 5 times x minus 3. Okay, now, does it matter which order I write those in? No. Now, once I'm here, how do I solve? Very good. What'd you say? Is that what you said? Set each factor equal to 0. Good. X plus 5 equals 0, and x minus 3 equals 0. Okay? What am I going to do to solve for x here? Subtract 5. So x is negative 5. Or add 3 here. X equals 3. Very good. Now, how many solutions? 2. Okay. Now, this is let me see if I have a star card. No, I do not. I was looking for a star chart, but I do not think I have one handy. Okay? This is called the quadratic formula. Okay? Now, do you remember when we did opposite of b over 2a and had our a, b, and c? Yes, we did. Okay? If it's in standard form, once again, whatever's in front of the x squared is our a, whatever's in front of the x is our, and whatever's by itself is the c. Okay? Now, all we're going to do is plug it in to the quadratic formula. Now, when I was in school, we had to memorize this. Okay? Now, you will always have it written for you. It's on the star chart. It'll be up on the board when you take a test. You will not have to memorize. Now, some of you, as you use it a time or two, I'll memorize it. But, anyway. Now, it says x equals the opposite of b plus or minus, and I'll explain what that means here in a second, the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, so the first thing when you're using this, the first thing you're going to have to do is come up with your a, b, and your c. Look right here. Is that the same quadratic equation that we used up here? Okay.
No.
Yes, it is. Okay. What's my a? My a is 1, because that's 1x squared. What's my b? 2. And what's my c? Negative 15. First thing for right now, I want you to go ahead and write the quadratic formula. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus square root Okay, now, what we're going to do is we're going to substitute 1 for the A's, 2's for all the B's, and negative 15 for the C. Now, every time I substitute, where it says I'm going to put those in parentheses. Okay? Now, it's really not once you get used to it. Okay, what do I put in for B? 2. It will be negative 2, yes. But I always say it's the opposite of 2. So if it's negative, it's going to become positive. If it's positive, it's going to become negative. Okay, once again, I have a B. So I'm going to have 2 squared. Make sure you put it in parentheses. Minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is negative 15, all over 2 times 1.
Wouldn't it be 1x squared?
What's that?
Wouldn't it be 1x squared?
Where?
No, but if it's just a number in front of the x squared, if that's the same.
But I have a question.
Now, all I'm doing right now is where there's a B, I'm going to substitute a 2. Where there's an A, I'm going to substitute a 1. So right here and here. And where it says C, I'm going to substitute a negative 15. Now, what I would do, okay, is always start underneath the square root. Yes, ma'am.
Why did you parentheses?
Because the negative's already there. The negative's in the formula.
Why did you do negative 2?
Because if you don't put it in parentheses, you won't see that that there's 2 negatives and it becomes positive.
That
Okay? What? What now?
It's because Mike is not good.
Okay? Because the negative is in the formula. Because too many times I've seen people that if my B is negative 2, they'll just write negative 2 instead of positive 2. Okay? Now, when you're doing multiplication here, it's very important that you put the parentheses or even the squared. Because if you just put negative 2 squared in your calculator, it's going to say negative 4. But if you put it in parentheses squared, a negative times a negative is a what?
Positive.
Positive.
I want a baby. Like, wait.
Okay, now,
What is that sign?
what's that?
Plus and the negative.
I'm going to explain. Now, when we factored it, we had how many solutions? 2. That's where the plus and minus come in, but I'll deal with that here in just a second. Okay? Now, like I said, start underneath the square root sign. This is called, and you will see this word again, underneath the square root is called the discriminant. Okay? You can actually up here just write that down. You will see that word again. And we will use it some. Now, what the discriminant will do, it will tell us how many solutions we're going to have. But we'll get into that here in just a little bit. But I want you to recognize the term discriminant. Now, it's also referred to as underneath the radical. That means the same thing. But for our purposes right now, we're going to refer to this as the discriminant.
What's the discriminant?
What's everything that's underneath the square root sign. Okay? Now, I'm just going to start here. What is 2 squared? 4. Now, if you look here, what am I actually multiplying together right here? That's negative 4 times 1 times negative 15. Now, how many negatives are right there? 2. So is my answer going to be negative or positive? Positive. If there's an odd number of negatives, it's going to be negative. So somebody help me out. What is negative 4 times 1 times negative 15? 60 times negative 15 is positive 60. So underneath here we have plus 60. Okay? So now I'm going to, what is 2 times 1? 2.
Why did you multiply 2 times 1?
Because that's, what's 8? Okay, now, what is 4 plus 60? 64. Now, eventually you're not going to have to write every step, but I'm not going to skip steps right now. Does that make sense? Okay, so we have negative 2 plus or minus. Negative 2 plus or minus square root. We said that was 64. 4 plus 60 over 2. Now, what is the square root of 64?
8.
What?
8.
8. Okay. Does everybody know where the square root sign is on the calculator? Okay. Now, square root, you have to hit second, then the x squared. Second, x squared, 64. Close parentheses. It's 8. So, what we have is negative 2 plus or minus 8 over 2. Now, once again, how many solutions did we come up with? 2. That's where we use the plus or minus. This means negative 2 plus 8 divided by 2, and it means negative 2 minus 8 divided by 2. Okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to do the...
What if we have just one solution?
Well, then the answer will be this. I'll tell you when you would have one solution here in a minute. Okay? Now, in your calculators, I want you to go negative 2 plus 8 enter divided by 2.
3.
So x equals 3. Now go negative 2 minus 8 enter. Negative 2 minus 8 enter divided by 2. Negative 5. Now, I said negative 2 plus 8 enter divided by 2.
Negative 5?
Yeah. and negative 2 minus 8 enter divided by 2. Now, I got two answers. X equals 3 and negative 5.
That is way too.
No, it's really not.
That's easy. That's easy.
Okay? Now, I mean, that's the first time we've ever done it.
That's very
Okay? But now, what do we notice about our solutions?
They are the same.
They are the same. Now, to answer your question, Angie, okay? Now, if the discriminant, listen, we will hear this again. If the and y'all might write that down. If discriminant is positive, you will have two solutions. If the discriminant is positive, you will have two solutions. If the discriminant is 0, if what underneath the square root sign is 0, you will have one solution. Because if it's 0 underneath the square root, if it is negative, you will have no solution. Okay. If it's positive, how many solutions?
2.
Positive 2. If it's 0,
1.
1. If it's negative, no solution. Okay, now this, after you do this a few times, it will start to get easier. Okay? Now, if we look at number 2, what's my A?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. My B?
Negative 4.
Negative 4, and my C is 3. Now, I will write the quadratic formula so you don't have to turn back. Okay, it's opposite of B. Plus or minus square root B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Okay, so now, substituting in the quadratic formula. The opposite of B, what am I going to use?
Positive 4.
Positive 4. Plus or minus square root B squared, so negative 4 squared, minus 4. Sorry. Times A, which is what? Times C, which is 3. All over.
So why isn't the negative in front of the formula?
Well, does this make, okay, I went ahead and did that. That would be the same, right? Now, I can look at that and say 2 negatives become a positive.
This is so. How do you know which one is A, B, or C?
Because the A is always in front of the x squared, my B is always in front of the x, and my C is always the number that's by itself. Okay?
Wait, this one.
Right.
For the plus 4 before the line, why was it negative?
Well, okay, the formula is the opposite of B, or negative B. So if I put negative 4 in there, there's 2 negatives next to each other. So it becomes positive.
Is that a question?
What?
What if it's not negative 2x squared? What if it's negative 2x cubed?
But then we can't use the quadratic formula because it's not a quadratic equation because it's a cube, not a square.
Okay.
Okay? Because it's quadratic equation, it has to be a quadratic. And we know it's quadratic because it has a Squared. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, now, okay, if you can put this right here in your calculator exactly like that. Okay, for instance, okay, can y'all see my calculator? Okay, I'm going to go square root, parentheses, -4 squared.
Wait, why'd you put an extra parentheses? You don't need an extra.
Because I need the -4 in parentheses. That's like two I'm putting it in exactly like that. This, okay?
Is this squared inside the parentheses?
No, it's outside. Okay? Minus 4 parentheses, -2.
Wait, did you forget the square? Wait, can you make it brighter?
That's about as good as I can get it. Now, then close the parentheses. Okay. Now, if I hit enter, that's it. We're okay. We're just going to round to one decimal place. Let me see. Let me check something real quick. Just hold on for a second. Because let's see, that's 16 minus 8, 16, 24. Yeah, that's the same thing. I just did the work. Okay? So, now all I did was put that whole thing in parentheses. Okay? Put it in my calculator exactly like this. So now I have 4 plus or minus 6.3. What is 2 times -2? 2 times -2? -4.
Okay, Mr. So,
Okay? What?
I was paying.
Okay? Now, I mean, you can do it. I mean, like with math, you can do it 100 of different ways. Okay? Now, you could forget the square root sign for right now and just do the -4 squared minus 4 times -2 times 3, hit enter, then take the square root of it. That's the same thing. Okay? If you did that, Romeo, please stop. Okay? If you did that, you would get 40. This right here equals 40.
40?
Yes. Okay, is that?
You gave me 6.3.
I know. But now on your calculator, if I did the work right here, underneath the square root, I'd have 40. Now take the square root of 40 on your calculator. Just go square root 40, enter.
40. Oh yeah, it is.
It's the same thing. Okay? Like I said, there's several different ways you could do it. Okay? Now, if it asks you just for how many solutions, okay, we got, that was 40 under there. Is that positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. It's positive. The discriminant's positive, so how many solutions am I going to have? 2. Okay? Now, to get those 2 solutions, okay, this is 4 plus 6.3, enter, divided by -4. 4 plus 6.3, enter, divided by -4. What did we get?
Negative 2.5.
Okay, so -2.6, or how do we get the other one? 4 minus 4 minus 6.3, enter,
It's
divided by.
75.
So, or one decimal place, that'd be what? Or positive what?
And a half? No.
Point Is that what you got?
0.6, yeah.
Okay, so there's my two solutions. Okay, now, on number 3. Now, when I put that in my calculator, was it really that much work?
No.
No. Alright,
What if we don't have a calculator?
well, you will. Okay, what's my A? 2. What's my B?
3.
And my C is -2. Okay, I'm going to start with the quadratic formula. Opposite of B, plus or minus square root B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. See, it does kind of help when you memorize it. You don't have to go. It does become a little bit quicker. Okay, so now, opposite of B. What's the opposite of B? -3. Plus or minus square root B squared, so 3 squared
Minus 4.
minus 4 times A, which is 2,
Times negative
times C, which is -2, all over
2.
2 times
Negative
2.
2.
2 times A, which is 2. Now, try it once. Okay? Don't put it in. Just find out what the discriminant is. Don't take the square root of it. Just go 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times -2. Yeah, don't start with the square root. Just start with what's underneath the parentheses and see what we get.
Oh.
Wait, don't put the square.
We'll do that in a second. All I'm doing is -3 squared minus 4 times 2 times -2, and I'm going to get an answer. What did y'all get the discriminant equal to be? 25. That is correct. -3 plus or minus square root of 25 all over, what's 2 times 2? 4. Now, the discriminant, is it positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. How many solutions? 2. What is the square root of 25?
5.
5. So we have -3 plus or minus 5 over 4. Okay. -3 plus 5, enter, divided by 4. What do we get?
0.5.
X equals 0.5. Or -3 minus 5, enter, divided by 4. What do we get?
Wait, how are you getting
Negative 2.
Okay, did you not hit enter after you said -3 plus 5? See, that's why. Did you get it that time? Okay. That's why I try to stress hit that enter, because you will get, because all it does when you put it in your calculator, instead of dividing by the -3 plus 5, it's just dividing the 5 by that 4. Okay? Okay, now, you're going to have to find out which way is comfortable for you. If you want to put the whole thing in parentheses, underneath the square root and use the calculator that way, that's fine. Okay? But, when you had the parentheses inside of a parentheses, inside of the square root, some of you are like, oh, I don't understand what, I'm saying you have a little bit of freedom with the calculator. Do what helps you. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. Then the last one. What's my A?
6.
B?
Negative 3.
And C? 7. Okay. Opposite of B.
Wait.
Positive 3.
Plus or minus. I'm just writing it so you don't have to keep looking back. Opposite of B. Plus or minus. B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Okay, so now,
Miss, I have a question.
what?
Is this the square?
That's called the discriminant,
No, the square.
the square. What about it?
This one, you know?
I don't have any idea what you're saying.
The box with.
Oh yeah, is the same for the solution?
What, your solutions are going to be the same, yes.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so now, plugging in, x equal, what do I put for the opposite of b? Positive 3, plus or minus, square root, negative 3, put it in parentheses, squared, minus 4 times a, which is,
6
times c, which is 7, all over 2 times 6. Now, start with the discriminant first.
What is that?
What's the discriminant?
Under the.
What's underneath the what? Square root. Negative 3 squared minus 4 times 6 times 7. Now, is this what we got? Now, take the square root of negative 159. Take the square root of negative 159. That's it. You took the square root of 159. Take the square root of negative 159. You're right.
Mister, my calculator doesn't work.
It's an error.
I know. Because,
It's an imaginary number?
yeah, it's an imaginary number. Okay, now, is the discriminant negative or positive? Negative. So there's what?
Solution.
No real solution. Now, you in algebra 2, you'll start talking about imaginary numbers. Yes.
What if you like that circle with the little.
Yeah, you could use that does mean no solution. That's fine for right now. But that's now, do you see why I say start with the discriminant?
Yes.
If it's negative, you know it's no solution. If it's 0, you have how many solutions? One solution. Okay? Now, why is it not possible to take the square root of a negative number?
Because negative.
Okay, because a square root is something multiplied by itself, right?
Yeah.
If I have a what's a negative times a negative? A positive. What's a positive times a positive?
Positive.
What's 0 times 0?
0.
0. So we can't get to a negative number. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.